Hello, everybody. Welcome to the finals of the Team Draft Super League. I'm Reid Duke. With me is Steve Rubin. Steve, congratulations on the top 4 at Grand Prix Indianapolis just 2 days ago.
Thanks, man. It was a good run.
Yeah, that's gotta be a good way to close out this draft format. Can you give us just like 5-second tournament report? What were your highlights, your drafts on day 2?
My drafts on day 2, the first draft deck was a blue-red deck, which I didn't think was that great, but I did have 3 Bloodwater Elementals, and I just kind of chained spells every game. Second draft was actually a mostly mono-blue Drakehaven deck. I had a few blue cards, but they weren't really, necessarily important to my strategy. And then in top 8, I actually had one of the best decks that I've drafted ever, and it was like a red-white Exert with all the Exert payoffs and a Glorybringer deck.
Yeah, we watched your draft, and when you opened the Glorybringer.
Unfortunately, I did not get to butt heads with Cuneo like I did in the Swiss. So my semifinals match was not very eventful. I didn't really get to play much Magic, but it happens. I got in the top 4 by playing lands and spells all day. So, I'm not definitely excited about the finish to start the season.
Yeah, always mixed feelings when you have like a great deck and you feel like, oh man, I could do it. But yeah. I mean, top 4 is just fantastic.
Yeah, and I think
nice job.
I think a lot of players get kind of upset when they don't win the pod when they know they have the best deck. But in reality, that doesn't even happen that often. The best deck is only going to win the pod like maybe 25% of the time, just because there's lots of Magic to play. Of course.
That's a great point. I always kind of took exception when people ask me like, oh, did you draft a 2-1 deck or a 3-0 deck?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Like you can win with a bad deck and you can lose with a good deck. I'm going to do my best.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. It's like there's a lot more in the gameplay than people usually give it credit. So
yeah, most definitely. Looks
like we're going to see Huey play against Alexander Hayne. Alexander Hayne is once again on blue-red spells, which I'm not sure. We've done 5 drafts. I think he's drafted it 4 times. So I actually kind of had that in mind while he was 2 seats to my left this draft. But it looks like he's up against Huey, who's kind of got an interesting white-black splash blue, I suppose, an Esper control deck with lots of walls, which, looking at the deck list, I think that Hayne, normally when you draft a blue-red deck, you get a lot of like the Afflict creatures and like Aerial Guide, which can be really good against like Huey's abundance of walls, I guess, were the best way of putting it. But Hayne doesn't have that many of those kind of creatures, so it's going to be interesting to see if Huey can stabilize the board, because that's what his deck's trying to do. He actually chose to draw against me in the dark without knowing my deck in the first round.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I was passing to Alex in the draft, and I had the hunch that he was going to go blue-red because, like you said, we've seen him do it so many times. And my opening pack was what I considered to be a pretty weak pack, and the best card I was passing was Riddle Form. So I'm like, okay, Alex is likely to take that. He likes that strategy, and then a couple of good red cards, including Open Fire. So I'm sure he just sort of slammed, his favorite archetype right from the start. It looks like he came up with something pretty good, just decent mix of spells, 2 unsummons. There were a lot of unsummons in the draft, and
I mean his deck hasn't been as good as we've seen in the past, though. He's opened some rares, and this time I don't think he got quite as lucky. It looks like I'm not exactly sure who's going to be favored. I think that if Hayne can draw his like Riddle Form and Hour of Eternity are the 2 cards that look like the best cards he can draw in this matchup.
Yeah, you said it. Huey's deck is, all about blocking on the ground, and he's got a couple of sorcery speed removal spells that the Riddle Form is going to match up very nicely against. So that is something we'll definitely look for.
Yeah, Huey, it looks like he's got he doesn't actually have that much removal. We're looking at a Desert's Hold, Impeccable Timing, a Consign to Oblivion, and then Bonti's Reckoning and Doomfall, which none of those actually really deal with Riddle Form, except for the Impeccable Timing is the only card that I see. So we'll see if Riddle Form, and then I guess the other card, actually, weirdly enough, Aerial Guide is kind of the card that I would like to see us draw, though Huey does have decent amount of lifelinkers. He's kind of curving out, topping off his curve with 2 Scrounger of Souls. So if he can stabilize early, he does have the ability to kind of race back, gain some life, take over the board. Alex does have some removal as well, of course. Like he's got 2 puncturing blows, so he does have decent answers. But I don't really. It's hard for me to see how this matchup's going to play out because I think that Alex has some cards that are really bad and then not necessarily going to line up well against a lot of what Huey's doing.
Well, players are ready, so let's see what they can make out of this matchup. Welcome back to round 2 of the finals of the Team Draft Super League. We call it round 2 because it's the second match we're putting on camera, but Team Dem Boys is already up 2-0 over my team, Peach Garden Oath.
All right, looks like Alex is on the play. I wonder if he won the die roll or not. I guess we might be able to find that out later. Now that they have deck lists, I'm assuming that Huey would choose to play against Alex's deck in this match.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Looks like
both players have their best cards, Alex in Riddle form and Huey in this 1-mana 0/4 last pick. It's pretty much his favorite card.
He's got the impeccable timing, which is kind of like, while it's his only answer to Riddle form, it's kind of a very strange answer to Riddle form because, Hayne is only going to attack with a Riddle form on his terms, so it's kind of like he can potentially play around it if he wants to. Looks like he's probably just going to run out a Sinuous Striker here. One
thing worth noting that I'm sure Huey will be keenly aware of having deck lists now is that Alex doesn't have any counter spells, which is something that normally he would be really, really worried about in a matchup like this.
Yeah, especially if he's trying to set up Bontu's Last Reckoning or turn the board over with Scrounger of Souls. But Hayne is going to be forced to use potentially unsummons or tap out for a Puncturing Blow to do that. So he's not going to really get ahead that way. And it's going to see Huey's just going to cycle his Desert of the True because he already has 4 lands, which casts most of his spells. And looks like he found his blue source, which, is nice, but also Huey doesn't really have much pressure, though I guess his deck doesn't really have pressure. It's all just walls, and eventually he's going to play a Lifelinker or a Torment of Scarabs to kind of burn Hayne.
Yeah, that's the plan, is pretty much just to survive. Now, this Riddle form is a really funny card because it is probably one of the best cards against Huey. But taking a look at Alex's spells, he's got plenty of spells, but they aren't all that great at turning on the Riddle form. For example, 2 of them are Cartouches, which you would need to have another creature before you can cast those. Several of them are expensive, Hour of Eternity and 2 Puncturing Blows. And then the rest of them are sort of like reactive. They're cards that take away a blocker. So those aren't all ways that, Alex can't get the continuous churn of spells that sometimes these blue-red decks really want to have.
Yeah, and normally, he would have like the Crash Throughs and the Value Traveler's Amulets and Strategic Planning and stuff. He actually turned out to not have it. Looks like the Riddle form is just going to be taken down by the Impeccable Timing most likely here, even though Huey knows the spells aren't great. The Impeccable Timing isn't getting any better, and it's kind of like a situation where Hayne is tapped out and he can get rid of that Riddle form forever. Like, if he doesn't get rid of the Riddle form, then Hayne can actually just kind of go long and scry forever. So looks like Huey is going to opt to play one of these Moaning Walls, which is reasonable. If Hayne's going to use a Puncturing Blow on one, it's pretty nice to kind of stem the bleeding here. And Hayne draws a Striped Riverwinder, which is interesting because he can cycle it to try to hit a land right away, or he can kind of use it to get 2 free damage in with the Cunning Survivor next turn.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I think I like playing the Cunning Survivor because if you cycle and you don't find something, you're going to have to pass the turn without adding to the board. So this sequence makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and if he draws land next turn, he's playing the Ceradon, and then he draws another land, he might even just consider holding on to the Riverwinder. So definitely like that play from Hayne. And Huey's going to go ahead and cycle Moaning Wall and probably play a Camel here.
Yeah, one of the determining factors in this game is going to be how quickly, if at all, Huey can find an answer to that Desert Ceradon, because blocking is such an important part of Huey's game plan. And if Alex has one creature that can represent sort of 2 unanswered attackers in the Desert Ceradon, that's going to be troublesome real quickly.
Yep, and Hayne's a little bit cut on blue mana, but actually Huey is now flooded. He looked like he had a reasonable draw, but just a few cyclers later, and he does have a few too many lands. I mean, he can play the Torment of Scarabs and kind of go pretty late game. Like, the Sinuous Striker is never going to get through, and Hayne is kind of gummed up on mana for a while. See if Hayne can draw out of it. He's going to need a land at some point, but if he's not drawing land, looking at his deck list, he actually doesn't really have any other cards. I think the only other card that costs more than 4 is the Manticore Eternal, and then Puncturing Blow being double red. So lands or spells, you know, Hayne is actually going to be pretty happy here. And looks like Huey's going to trade off the Camel right now, which surprises me a little bit because I felt like he had the ground under control. And
yeah,
the Sinuous Striker, yeah.
He just wants to take his spot with the Camel sooner rather than later because having it die to a removal spell, he might lose the opportunity to trade at a 3-life.
Yeah, he knows Hayne doesn't have another island. The thing is, the Sinuous Striker does actually attack into the Moaning Wall, which is why I was just a tiny bit surprised. But Hayne is going to start taking damage from this Torment, and he's really not adding that much to the board this turn. Looks like probably just going to be a sure shot.
So the Torment of Scarabs, not terribly exciting on this board state. I mean, Alex has a lot of life total to play with. He even has some bad cards in his hand, so it's going to be a while before the Torment really starts pressuring him. Yeah. But what it does do is it makes the Hour of Eternity not as threatening. Under normal circumstances, like, Huey would sit behind his walls, and we could just wait 10 turns until Alex can cast that Hour of Eternity for 2.
And that was pretty much the perfect draw from Huey. He draws the Tragic Lesson, which allows him to pick up his desert, essentially drawing him 3 cards, which is super nice. And yeah, the Torment, even though it doesn't affect the board much, is actually pretty nice, especially considering Huey still has the 2 Scrounger of Souls. So he's in a spot where eventually he's going to draw like a really good blocker, I think. And, you know, Hayne's going to be forced to kind of try to kill him quickly, but he can unless he draws islands.
Yep, can't wait forever in face of Torment of Scarabs.
Yeah. There's the first island, which will allow him to get the Ceradon on board, which is a pretty big game. He does get in for 2 per turn. And it looks like Huey elected not... I didn't even notice, but Huey elected not to play the Scorpion. Instead, he's going to cycle the Desert of the Mindful, because he's got a pretty reasonable life total. So I think it's fine to just try to draw into something, because like I said before, he kind of knows that his big life linkers are really good draws, or just some of his cheap walls are good too, because Hayne is starting to build kind of a small wide board.
Yeah, and the Moaning Wall, while it's a good body, it doesn't match up great against either of Hayne's 2 attackers.
Yeah, basically the Scorpion could trade, but I think this play is fine. He's only taking essentially damage he's already going to take anyway, so Hayne's going to lay the Desert Ceradon and see what Huey can cycle into here.
Yeah, so big couple of draw steps for Huey. He really wants to find an answer to the Ceradon. Bontu's Last Reckoning, Desert's Hold. These are his best cards to draw. And he's going to cycle the Scorpion looking for him. Ugh.
And he just draws land, Manolith, which is just gross. Because I was actually going to say that now that I see him cycling the desert, it's actually good that he hold on to the Wasteland Scorpion, because he has to deal with the Ceradon, but he just totally bricked, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, so now he's going to take minimum of 7 damage.
Yeah.
And he'll have to find something else pretty quickly. He does have the Bontu's Last Reckoning, which can get him back in it even when things are looking pretty bad. But he will definitely have to find something.
And after this attack, Hayne's basically going to know that Huey's on nothing. Like, if he had any creature, he'd play it. If he had any spell, he'd play it. So I guess maybe if he had a Bontu's Reckoning, he would hold it. So we'll see if Hayne elects to play out the Sure Shot or not. He does have the Unsummon and the Hour, which give him like a reasonable amount of protection against Bontu's Reckoning.
You're saying he'll unsummon his own creature?
Yeah, he could potentially unsummon the Ceradon. I don't know what he's going to do with this desert. Looks like he's going to play it, which I think is reasonable. Which is going to give Huey some information as well. But, I mean, Huey's just living off the top, so it doesn't really give him that much of an advantage. Like, basically, I'm imagining that Huey's likely... Well, I guess because he's got the Ramunap Ruins, it's potentially not obvious that he has the Hour. because he did elect not to bring back the Sinuous Striker. Like he could have discarded that Desert to bring back the Striker and didn't. And he's going to pass after playing the Scrounger. And Hayne is thinking end of turn. He's thinking about the Unsummon because if he draws a land, then he can fire off the Hour. It looks like he's maybe going to... I don't know if he's like what the right play is because he's kind of in a situation where he wants to hold the Hour for a potential Bontu's Reckoning, but he also doesn't want to like not kill Huey, when he has the opportunity to.
Look at this, the Torment of Scarabs allowing Alex to trigger the Cunning Survivor at will with, turn any card into a bad cycler.
Which is super bizarre because actually against me, Huey, he had a Pitiless Vizier and used my Torment to give it indestructible and cast Bontu's Last Reckoning.
Wow.
Which is kind of like, that's twice. And actually, you just had Lethal, which I guess with the discard to the Cunning Survivor. And like I said, after that turn, I mean, Alex knew that, not Siggy, sorry, Huey was on basically nothing, so he just goes for the win. I suppose with the +1 damage from the Torment, that was enough, so...
that last turn was an attack for 8, which was going to leave Huey dead to the Ramanop Ruins, so that drew a concession.
Yeah, and let's look at the sideboard here. I don't know exactly what Hayne has. He loves siding against Slitherblade, I've noticed. I'm no comment on that, but he sent us the deck lists, while we were building our decks, because I think he was at the GP in Europe, so he's not in town, so he wasn't on Skype with us. But I was like, yeah, we can cut the Honko Passion to Slitherblade. Like, that's what I told him immediately, and we cut them, but I guess they're working their way back in, which is funny against so many walls.
We also had some debate about Huey's deck. He has an interesting build because most of his cards are white and black, but he did decide to play with a little bit of blue, partly because he needed the blue deserts anyway. But I was sort of advocating for like a cleaner mana base. I said, like you could just build a white-black deck that's a little unfocused, but at least your mana is good and your cards are pretty good. I think against the aggro matchup, that's what he's leaning towards. Is he just wants everything come out smooth and have the nice blockers plus a Wrath of God.
Yeah, also, if he just plays one color, he gets the Endless Sands, which actually is really good with Bontu's Last Reckoning, I think. But I guess he is... when he has blue, obviously he can't do that. I didn't catch it. Did he? He didn't side out the blue, did he?
Well, he left in the 2 blue deserts, and I think he left in Consigned to Oblivion, but he may have taken out Tragic Lesson. Yeah,
Hayne is pretty aggressive, so it makes sense. And it looks like Hayne... looks like Huey chose to draw, so Huey's on the draw plan, and I think the reason that he's doing that is he's got these 1-mana 0/4s and walls, and he just kind of can leverage their efficiency in pretty much blocking anything that he thinks he wants the extra card, and he's also a little bit short on... I'm not going to say short on win conditions, but just I think that his deck is a little underpowered in a sense that he doesn't have that many great cards, so just being on the draw gives him more resources.
Yeah. Now, one thing about choosing to draw Unlimited, Huey and I choose to draw a fair amount, and it can work out badly. Like, you choose to draw, you look really silly when your blue-red opponent has a great draw and just curves out on you. But the thing is, not every game in Limited, both players have a good draw. And if basically either player is missing land drops or mulliganing or just in some way has an awkward draw, that's when it's good to be on the draw because you draw out of it more quickly when things aren't going well. So it's like if you knew ahead of time that both players were going to have great draws, you'd almost always want to be on the play. But if your mana's a little shaky and maybe one player is going to mulligan, that's when it can be safer to be on the draw. I think that's what Huey was thinking here. It did turn out that Alex took a mulligan also.
Yeah, and Huey's got the Bontu's Last Reckoning, which is his best card by a lot, and that card, I think, is just most likely significantly better on the draw. Basically because you're going to be playing it after they play a relevant creature. Like, you get to pick your spot when you play it, so you can, have it, like, the entire game, and, for instance, right here, he can play it, and he's going to get 2 creatures without losing tempo, really.
Oh, yeah, this is just exactly how Huey drew it up. He chooses to draw, opponent mulligans, so starts off down a resource. He 2-for-1s with the Bontu's Last Reckoning and is facing a clean board with Torment of Scarabs, exactly what his deck wants to do.
Yeah, because, for instance, if he was on the play that game, like, the Ceradon wouldn't be in play yet, and then he can just play the Scrounger or play nothing at all, and that would kind of give away that he had the Bantu's Last Reckoning. So it actually worked out really nicely. And he drew a Camel here. No Desert yet, but uses his mana, and he wants to put pressure on Alex because he's got the Torment. So looking reasonable, but the Striped Riverwinder actually might provide a huge late game potential here, which is kind of funny. You don't see that card in play very often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, Alex might have to leave it back in the face of, we'll call it 1.5 lifelinkers. He definitely can't race. But it is a hexproof creature against a deck with a fair amount of spot removal. Oh, geez.
Oh, he
nice
drew Power of Eternity. So, should he attack first?
Well, if he attacks, he does have the option to double block.
Yeah. So, I like this play better because I was thinking that if he attacked first, the double block, he could then return the Striped Riverwinder, but I think the Ceradon and the Aerial Guide are both just better. I didn't realize how insane that was.
Keep in mind with the Hour, the creatures retain their abilities, so now Hayne has a huge amount of unblockable damage here.
Yeah, Huey's on a 2-turn clock. He actually drew Renewed Faith, which with this many lands is it's. I'm not going to say it's the perfect draw because he needs removal, but was a reasonable draw because that'll put him out of a 2-turn clock. The one thing that Huey does still have is that to get to 7 mana, Alex had to play out all his lands. So this Torment of Scarabs is just going to pretty much be Lava Spike every turn, or Hayne's going to have to skip playing whenever he draws. So we'll see what happens here. I imagine that Hayne's in a great spot. I mean, that was the perfect draw, of course.
Yeah, this feels dirty. I was really liking Huey's position a couple turns ago.
Yeah, and he's just got unfortunately flooded both games. I mean, I guess Hayne drew 8 lands as well this game, but he drew the perfect 2 7-drops to make it.
He drew the cards that go well with 8 lands,
which is kind of funny. Plus the desert, which Huey actually doesn't have a desert, even though I think he's got more than Hayne. Huey's thinking here. I mean, I guess maybe there's some way that he might want to hardcast the Renewed Faith somehow, get Hayne to overcommit, because I don't think that's in Huey's main deck. So it's a card that, interestingly enough, we have deck lists on TDSL, and if Alex is just looking straight at the deck list, he might not expect it. So we'll see what Huey ends up doing. I mean, I can't imagine. Otherwise, he'd just cycle it right away, right?
Yeah, so he's trying to map things out if the Renewed Faith being a hard cast will possibly give him 1 extra turn. Because 1 extra turn is big with Torment of Scarabs and the lifelink creatures. Also, like you mentioned, he's thinking if maybe he can make Alex get too aggressive, make a big attack, and then he can survive and get in with the lifelink creatures on the backswing.
Yeah, and then, if once he gets Hayne low, Hayne might have to start sacking his creatures, which are all really good right now. We're just going to sit and wait. It's a tough calculation. So he goes to 22, which on board it's kind of complicated because Huey has 1.5 lifelink creatures, So 22 is he'll only still survive 3 turns from 2 4-power flyers. But if he ever gains 3 with the 3/4 lifelink, that's going to put him at 25 total life, which is actually kind of an additional turn. It looks like I think he's just going to cycle it though.
Yeah, while I didn't think it through nearly as carefully as Huey must have, that is my instinct to cycle and just try to find a removal spell.
He draws a desert, which gives the Camel lifelink, but just hits a land. I mean, it gives him the blue source, but pretty much a brick here. Don't think he has any attacks. And now Hayne actually weirdly even if he draws a land, he can still use it to fuel the Torment, so it's not even that bad for him. Obviously, the Torment is something he has to deal with ongoing. Draws a Cartouche. Doesn't seem to do much, but because both of Huey's creatures have lifelink.
It at least it's sort of a free roll because, a total brick card is something he would just discard next turn, but the Cartouche he can put into play, get a small effect, and then sacrifice it next turn. So it is better than nothing.
Yeah, or he can just hold on to it, see what Huey does, and then he can discard it or choose to take 3 to use it. So definitely, Huey might, if Huey bricks again, he might have, since he has the Ceradon, he can potentially make both of Huey's creatures not block and kill him next turn. but he doesn't know exactly what Huey's got. Huey could draw a consign or something else. Looks like he draws a Moaning Wall, which he's going to immediately cycle.
Yeah, blocker's not so good on this board. Brutal.
Jeez. Yeah, he just draws another land. This is actually just a super super silly match because Huey has put himself in position to win both games and then just drew only lands, basically, almost, or cyclers into lands, which is like pretty crummy as well. See what Alex does here. I mean, he can go for the win, but it's not going to be a win through a consign, which Huey did just draw blue source and not use it last turn, so I don't know. I think he's probably going to wait at least one more turn to go for the win. Looking at Huey's deck list right now, I'm sure, just to figure out, like, okay, if I go to 5, like, what combination of cards can kill me potentially? And I think likely after doing so, he might just hold the cartouche because he's still got the ruins, which is 2 damage, and I think he's very likely to, after this turn, he's going to know Huey has nothing and, like, pretty much have certainly lethal next turn, regardless of what Huey draws.
Yeah, he can just attack for 8 or 9 damage in the air, ignore the lifelink creatures, and then have lethal with the Ramanop ruins.
Yeah. Looks like he's going to go for the cartouche and just go for the win, because he knows that Impeccable... Actually, yeah, I don't know if Huey actually has one card to save him here, because this looks like, because the Riverwinder has hexproof, like, a consign doesn't save him. So actually, smartly, Alex just goes for the win and doesn't give Huey another draw. So, and that's going to be the match. Looks like we're going to be up 3-0. Let's see if we can get into the other match, which is OWEN Turtenwald versus Michael Sigrist. Don't think we've had an update on that match yet.
Yeah, wow. So a quick 3-0. The first round I lost pretty convincingly to Mike. And I think you had beaten Huey before Mike and I even started playing.
Yeah, that was kind of... I kind of had the perfect cards to beat Huey, so I can't... got kind of lucky. I had Torment and Scarab God, which his deck can't really deal with one. Like, he can maybe deal with one, but both definitely not. So hold tight here. We'll try to get into the other match.
Needless to say, OWEN versus Mike is one that my team is going to need to win if we want to stay alive in this match and in this league.
Yeah, and OWEN is on red-white, and Siggy, as we saw before, is on his green-black splash red ramp deck. I don't know exactly, like, Siggy's deck has a lot of low-drop creatures, but I don't know if it lines up that well against an aggressive, like, red-white exert deck. But in a second here, we'll get into the match. Definitely a good start for Dem Boys today, and our decks are good too. So we'll see if we can close a deal or if it can continue on.
Yeah, it was a little unfortunate for me that I played against Mike in the first round before deck lists because I was tricked a little bit. His opening start was like Rodus a Stalwart, Kenra Eternal, Ambuscade your blocker, and I was sort of like, whoa, like let me pump the brakes and protect my life total. And I had one decision where Mike attacked and played a combat trick, and I had to choose whether I was going to use Countervailing Winds or Ambuscade to like one up the combat trick.
Yeah.
And I decided to use Countervailing Winds because I thought, like, okay, if Mike plays another creature post combat, I'm going to need the Ambuscade just to like tread water and get back on the board. But then from that point on, he went like nothing. Yeah, Sifter Worm, Sandworm, Convergence. I was like, oh my god,
and Alex
that counterspell so bad.
They were like, oh, he's going to Ambuscade here and you Countervailing Winds. But I actually honestly thought the Countervailing Winds was fine because on the next turn you were flashing back your, embalming your Aven, so you were going to be tapped out. And at that point in the game, like the Countervailing Winds was just super medium, and you didn't know what he was going to do. And like he did play a desert, but it was a red desert, and he didn't have red yet. So it's kind of a situation where you still didn't know that he was a ramp deck, and he's kind of a mid range deck. Like he can be both. Obviously, he's got some low to the ground guys and combat tricks, and he ended up costing you. But I thought the play was reasonable when you made it.
Yeah, given the information I had at the time.
Yeah, like you're, especially just because you're almost 100% of the time gonna embalm your Aven on the next turn. Like if he does have a big, even if he is a ramp deck and he does have a good 6 or 7 drop, like if you don't embalm your Aven, he knows you have the counterspell anyway. And if you do, like he can still get the good card underneath your counterspell. So like, and then you end up with a counterspell instead of an ambuscade, which, like, it's definitely like a feel bad, but I think the play is most likely right. Let's see. I'm gonna check the chat to see if there's a game count or anything for this match. We haven't really heard much.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it's actually going to game 3. I don't know if it's in. I think it might be. We're paused in game 3. All right. So just sit tight.
Owen, by the way, has a pretty nice white-green beatdown deck. Appeal to authority, good creatures. I think he has a synchronized strike. So we felt pretty good about Owen's deck.
Yeah, he's got
certainly not anything insane. Well.
Yeah, but it's a cohesive aggro deck, and it does have the go wide potential of the monuments, and then appeal to authority is just great in a green-white deck. Not to mention he's got Double Ronus' Stalwart, which is a card that I think I undervalued for a long time because green is kind of hard to draft in this format because half the cards are kind of ramp and half the cards are kind of aggressive. Like an Ambuscade and Ronus' Stalwart aren't great in the ramp deck, but I've lost a lot of games where my opponent just played a Ronus' Stalwart and it just kind of like quote unquote Gustwalkered me, it just like got in every turn and I'm like, oh crap, like I need to use like a 4-mana removal spell to kill it, and it's just never really that great. So Owen's got a great curve, which is always good when you're playing against like a 3-color deck, and Siggy has 4 tap lands, 2 Traveler's Amulets, so like he's definitely going to be on the slower side. Like a card like Sandworm Convergence, which is going to be great against Reid or Huey, is not going to be that good in this matchup. So, all right, looks like we're ready to get down into the game, so we'll see what's going on.
Welcome back to the Team Draft Super League. Dem Boys up 3-0 over Peach Garden Oath, and we're just tuning in for Game 3 here of Owen Turtenwald versus Mike Sigrist. It looks like we tuned in at the crucial moment, Mike playing his 8-mana Sandworm Convergence.
But Owen actually has a Nissa's Defeat, which I've literally never seen cast, and it's going to be insanely good here.
Oh my gosh.
Which is just
and he thought
goes
of
to show you. Owen's a clever player. He's a good player. He's a good technical player. He's a good deck builder. He just does everything well. So I got to give it to him there. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, wow. It's one of those cards that you probably completely ignore it, 98% of the time. And it's just finding these fringe corner cases. And I mean, that's why Owen picked it in the draft. That's why he sideboarded it in. It's perfect. And it's going to save him from an almost certain defeat.
Yeah, Owen looks like he's actually in pretty good shape. He's got a flyer he's 2 lands off of double activating the Devotee. Of course, Mike does have a removal spell, but I think that looks like the Devotee and the Wing Shepherd are both quite threatening.
Plus, you got to just figure the emotional blow of having your Sandworm Convergence Nissa's defeated. Mike, we might just see him concede this turn. Yeah,
Mike probably thought he was good. He's like, okay, we made it through, but evidently not. The Nissa's Defeat.
That moment, is awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw it here. That's the moment that Peach Garden Oath started their comeback.
Yeah, I have to say that me and Siggy do love Nissa, so it's kind of appropriate if it does go down that way. Looks like Mike's pinging over to the deck lists. Probably didn't expect the Nissa's Defeat as like, oh, what else could possibly happen here, But as it stands, we're going to see Mike probably torment something on his main phase so that it doesn't survive through.
That's what Mike's deciding is he knows he's going to cast the torment on the flying creature. He's deciding whether it's better to do it now or on Owen's turn.
Yeah, and it's kind of like I think he's probably going to kill the Shepherd because it gives him more draws. Looking at his graveyard, his other torment is gone. So I think the only removal left in his deck, we have a Trial of Zeal, and that's about, and an Ambuscade. Yeah, so he's going to kill the Devotee, which is, I can't tell on this board. It's a little too much going on for me to kind of figure out what's better. But he figures, you know, without the Devotee, Owen can't really attack with anything other than the Winged Shepherd. And the Winged Shepherd only kills him in 4 turns, so let's see what Owen draws here. Ooh, an Appealed Authority. That actually is probably lethal, combined with the Synchronized Strike.
So let's see. Mike's going to have 1 blocker, and Owen on the board can get through 3 creatures for 8 damage, plus maybe if he finds a way to between the Synchronized Strike and the Appeal to Authority, it should be comfortably lethal. But that's only if he decides to go for it in the face of 5 open mana.
Yep, but it's kind of a spot where, like, Siggy just main phase killed the Devotee. He probably would also main phase kill the Winged Shepherd if he had it, so I do like the play of just going for it, and it looks like Owen is just going to go for it with Appeal to Authority into Synchronized Strike, which I'm not even sure if he needed the Synchronized Strike to 7, 10. Looks like he's got Xaxes without even casting the Synchronized Strike, I believe. Oh, no. No, yeah, he's got Xaxes, so he doesn't even have to cast it. He can say, you know what, Mike, like, show me what you got, and it's going to go to 3-1 here.
All right, so Owen Turtenwald defeats Mike Sigrist with Nissa's defeat on Sandworm Convergence, followed by Appeal to Authority for the win.
Very nice. Yeah.
That gives us our first win, 3-1 in favor of Dem Boys. And next match, well, I'm not sure what the exact match is going to be, but Steve and I will be in the trenches for the next round. And I think you're going to have Randy Bueller on commentary,
I think
our esteemed host.
Randy and Siggy are going to commentate my match against Owen, it looks like. And we'll catch you guys after the break.
Looking for a chat?